All right, there we go. So welcome to our the Climate App webinar. My name is Erin Marr. My background is in climate science and meteorology, and I'm currently living in Dublin studying sustainable development. And I'm super excited to be your host today and to bring you three amazing panelists who I'm going to let introduce themselves now. So I'll pass it over to Tiffany to let you know a little bit about herself, and then we'll get ready to go.
I broke up a little bit on me in there, Erin. So I hope I heard everything you said. So I'm Tiffany. I'm a community builder on Facebook for the Climate App at the moment. My background, a little bit about me. I work in television. I have done for 20 years working on live TV production. And during that time, I started becoming more and more interested in the environment and the climate, but especially in animal activism. So I got involved looking after some of the publicity for Action for Elephants UK. I also started a march up in Manchester for the elephants in 2016, I think. And it's basically to raise awareness for the elephant trade and action against ivory and poaching. So that was my kind of introduction into animal activism. I then started to move to more domestic animals in the UK, and at the moment I'm trying to raise awareness of industrial factory farming of animals. Also, I'm a holistic therapist as well, so apart from doing yoga and massage, my thoughts often turn to the environment and how we can all live more holistically in the environment and the world around us. And my passion for the environment and watching how we can use science to overcome some of the climate sort of problems that we have is really strong. And finally, I joined XR in 2019. I was really excited by the movement. I wanted to join a big group of passionate people that wanted to actually do something about the impending crisis that we have. And so I joined the XR drummers for the Samba band in Manchester. So I've been on quite a few protests and held up a few roads and caused a bit of disruption. But it's all for the cause. And yeah, so that's a bit about me.
Great. Thank you so much, Tiffany. We're so excited to have you. I'll pass it over to Arki now to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Arki. I'm an environmental scientist with the Climate App. So basically, I, among a few other scientists, is behind the back end of the application, all the science behind it. I have a PhD in physics, specifically as thermophysics and theoretical thermodynamics. So I'm actually pretty close to global warming thing, which is basically my basic background. I also have done a postdoc in electrical engineering, studying some basic components of energy systems. And I was also working in private R&D, developing power devices, and currently I'm studying electric propulsion systems. Also, I am a certified renewable energy expert. I'm also with Extinction Rebellion for probably very similar reasons than Tiffany is. Just joined last year, never been arrested, never actually been to a single protest though, but I try to support the local group as much as I can. Maybe at some point I become brave enough to actually, be on a few roads or something like that, because I definitely 100% support the cause, and I definitely think that our governments pretty much around the world. I didn't say I live in Australia, so it's 5 a.m. for me at the moment. Our governments, and especially the Australian government, they're failing us heavily, and this procrastination of climate action is absolutely unacceptable. So I totally support the cause and methods actually of Extinction Rebellion. And I think we all should try, we all should do more, of course. that's me.
Awesome. Thank you again. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to introduce Cece.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Erin. Pleasure to be here. My name is Chen Tong. I advise the Climate App on sustainability strategy and how we think about incorporating sustainability, environment, and social concerns into the design of our app. I appreciate what Tiffany said earlier about holistic living, so I wanted to share a little bit about why I became interested in the sustainability field. I grew up in Taiwan, and 11 years ago, when I moved from Taiwan to DC for grad school, Taiwan had a severe tropical storm that caused a landslide and buried the entire mountain village of 400 people overnight. It was a wake-up call for a lot of people. Personally, it made me realize the importance of conservation and how we rethink our relationship with nature. I came to DC and realized that there weren't very few opportunities that allow me to work directly on climate change. But then I was able to break it down and think about the steps that would take me to get to a career I wanted. So I thought in order to change the direction of business, I had to learn how to change the direction of finance. Finance is tied to policy. And so World Bank became the natural place to be. I had the opportunity to manage the first carbon fund created in the world to protect standing forest. And that opportunity led me to go into environmental and social governance. And I'm now working as a sustainability consultant, advising Microsoft on their climate innovation fund. Very happy to be here and looking forward to more conversations and discussions about how we could all look into what we could do to cut emissions.
Great. Thank you so much. So as I hope all of you here can see, we have 3 passionate and diverse people here with a whole lot of expertise. So bring all your tough questions. But I want to start off just asking each one of you about what specific actions you take in your daily lives to minimize your carbon footprint. So whoever wants to start, go for it.
Me?
Okay.
Oops,
okay.
that's awkward. Tiffany, yeah, it's
Okay. Right. Well, I think probably the main sort of action that I take is that I am vegan. And as we know, avoiding animals, dairy, eggs, fish, it does a lot of good for our planet. And I find that's one easy, simple thing that's enjoyable for me to do daily, which doesn't really cost too much more money. And it's something that I can feel really positive about. So that's one thing. I recently got a hybrid car, which did cost a lot of money. However, I think the savings in the future will be really, really good. I'm already noticing it's less petrol. I have to do a lot of driving, unfortunately. So that's really helping, I think, as well. I haven't been on an aeroplane for over 3.5 years. And bearing in mind, I used to be a real frequent flyer. I used to love traveling. I used to do a hell of a lot of exotic trips. I've managed to avoid an aeroplane, partly because of COVID, that did help. But I also grow my own food as much as I can. So I have an allotment. I've had it for, I think, 4 years now. And I grow a lot of the staples: potatoes, onions, garlic, a lot of salad, a lot of fruit as well. I love blueberries. They're really easy to grow over here. And I find that growing your own food, even if you've just got a small space, a small backyard, a few pots, you can get growing anything, and it saves money. It's great because it can be organic. You don't need to use peat in your soil. There's lots of alternatives. So I find that's really useful. I try to use as little energy as possible. Reusable batteries, low energy items. switch off lights, turn down the heating. I use reusable period products as well, which I think is useful in some ways for the climate. I've got a reusable water bottle, just small things as well. And I try to not buy too many new clothes, and also try to make my own from scraps of material, old bits and pieces rejuvenated into something else. So I think that's probably it. I need to do more.
It's like, that's probably a lot of great things. Thanks for sharing. Maybe I was like, Arky seemed ready to go. Go ahead next. Let us know what you're up to.
Yeah, I am. Well, yeah, I also am a vegan, and I wasn't being a vegan for like all of my life, but once I started looking into the climate issues and environmental footprints, just started like trying to educate myself a little more. And once I have realized the environmental footprints of basically animal agriculture, and how much meat and dairy and even eggs, to a less extent, but still eggs cost into our environment disproportionately high costs, I couldn't find any reasonable rational response but just completely boycott those foods. I still can, though, just occasionally eat it because it's everywhere. So it's not that I just eat it and just freak out. No, not like that. But of course, I just try to be vegan as much as I can. And also, ethical part of it is also pretty disturbing for me, honestly. But even just looking at it from the environmental perspective, that is costing our environment. It's probably, I would say, meat, especially beef, is like new oil. And that's not even in any way highlighted in media. We all against fossil fuels. That's quite obvious. The burning fossil fuels increase atmospheric carbon dioxide. But environmental footprint, and it's not only global warming, but also eutrophication, also loss of biodiversity, deforestation, and it's like a massive combination of all that, and also methane emissions that are also heavily understated with current IPCC reporting guidelines, because we are supposed to report methane, a very short-lived atmospheric greenhouse gas, over the period of 100 years. And its half-life is only 9 years. And the problem is we keep adding it into the atmosphere, and as long as we just only left like about in the order of 10, 15 years left, maybe 20 years left to take action, maybe even less, just averaging it and saying that it's 23 times as potent as carbon dioxide over 100 years, as technically there's nothing wrong with this, but in reality, on a short period of time, and it decays in the atmosphere, but we keep adding it due to digestion of ruminant animals, due to their manure, due to land changes, the methane emissions, they go into the atmosphere, and even 1% in the mix of greenhouse gases of this methane may actually potentially have like approximately 50% of all global warming, all the heating potential, all the radiative forcing can come from methane. So that's how bad it actually is, not to mention that we are running out of land. And still, animal food produces only a tiny portion of calories. So I was also a bit concerned about protein because I'm an athlete. Turns out it's completely nothing to worry about. That was really like a revelation to me, because especially if we are living in, well, high-income countries, and we get to choose what we eat, essentially, as long as the caloric requirement of a person are met and you're eating more than one food, 2, 3 foods, it's almost impossible to actually don't get essential protein and don't get essential amino acids. I still go to a doctor every now and then just to check my blood, especially specifically iron levels in my blood, because I'm also an iron negative blood donor, so I donate, I cycle a lot, so that's put pressure on my system. Still never been anemic. That's what my doctor every now and then just tells me to just take iron supplements just in case. But overall, that's nothing to worry about, essentially. So that's what what pushed me also to, I try to understand why this myth about protein and essential amino acids still perpetuates. And yeah, I don't find any answer. So also, I don't drive at all. So I don't even know how to. Maybe. So my wife drives. We own a Prius, also a hybrid, but I ride bicycle everywhere. And again, because I ride bicycle, and I need to make sure that the fuel I intake is actually not like emissions associated with my edible fuel is not as bad as the cars. And again, if you eat a lot of meat, it may turn out that even walking may be as bad as driving a car. So we need to be really careful what we eat. So, and when I train, I actually burn a lot of calories. So I need to make sure that I'm eating like low impact carbohydrates to replenish active calories. And I do it for like as a sport, and I do it for everyday commute. I also build actually electric bicycles. That's kind of partly my professional expertise, and I use electric bicycle everywhere where I can't use my normal bicycle. And renewable energy, I have a massive solar panels array on the roof of my house. So we just bought only just under 2 years ago, and the first thing we done was just invested in a very big solar panel system, and we stopped using gas in our house. That was, to me, the use of gas as cooking and heating fuel is insane. It's in pretty much any country in the world still can't give up on gas, and gas has been pushed as a cleaner alternative to coal. And it is in some way, but it's still horrible, especially when we have such a big number of amazing thermal engineering and electrical technologies, such as heat pumps, and they can be like extremely amazing. Like heat pumps is something that can get us that as close as humanity can get to free energy as it is possible, actually, like as the laws of physics allow us to, and still they're not widely used. And we have, so that we gave up on the gas boiler, and we have now heat pump hot water tank heater. It's amazing, like its consumption is just very low. And I also being a part of I don't know what's it called in the United Kingdom. In Australia, it's called the body corporate, like multiple dwelling. So we have a complex of like 43 townhouses, and I became a chairperson. So I just wanted to get some position for reasonable influence. So now I'm promoting solar energy in the system, like in our complex, and in particular, I have introduced, and it just took me just overcoming so many administrative hurdles to introduce internal solar energy exchange. So currently, actually, a handful of roofs. Currently, we have only 5 out of 43, providing as much as 25% of solar energy for the rest of their neighbors who don't have solar. And that portion comes discounted. And what's really amazing that solar owners, they are getting their fair feed-in tariff, which is much higher than what market is trying to rip them off. And market is trying to just, there's nothing stopping market to actually not even pay anything for the solar export. But because we are sort of shielded a little bit from the market, and most of the energy generated by it's called embedded generation is staying within the community, that opens up an opportunity for like a bigger groups of people basically protect themselves from the greedy energy companies or market operators. So I'm just promoting this, and we have a number of people are becoming, start to realize how awesome it actually is. And yeah, and what's more important, people who don't have solar, they get some discounts for using that solar energy. And if you look at a normal retailer normally takes some premium for you to go green, and you can't even just guarantee that your energy is going to be green, and you have to pay more. And to me, it looks more like a marketing ploy. So that's another thing I do. And I also, like last year, that was a nightmare. I had to study again, going to the undergraduate level. And I got my graduate certificate in renewable energy technologies from the Engineering Institute of Technology. So I'm certified renewable energy expert now. So I can consult people, give them actually a certified, not just self-reported energy expert, even though, probably having a PhD in physics already in some way an overkill, yet I have a formal, acknowledgement of this fact, and I can consult people, and this is what I'm trying to do, to just help people to understand what they can do with their home to improve. And there's a heaps, there's really big room for improvement. So our homes are extremely energy inefficient, and essentially, I don't even know why again. So it's always for me a question, why? Because as a physicist, I see this technology exists, solutions definitely exist, but for some reason, this old ways, very inefficient, very wasteful ways, they perpetuate everywhere. Transport, food, energy, pretty much everywhere. Our world is designed to waste energy, and this is what bothers me, and this is what I'm trying to, well, in some way counteract. So, and I probably it's already too long for me. I just pass it to Chen.
Well, thank you. Aki is the energy expert here. So I won't go too much into renewable energy, but wanted to say when I think about cutting emissions in my life, I think about it from three different aspects. How I power my life and what's my food intake? How do I move around, like the transportation I have? I would say like most local governments or companies in your area, they likely going to have some sort of subsidies or programs that you could look into to bring renewable energy, incorporate renewable energy into your life. That's what I did. There's a local company here in DC that works on like feeding renewable energy into the grid. So I use their services rather than a large utility company services. However, if you have capacity and the financing mechanism to install solar panel in your home, and there are a lot of community solar or even just solar panel you could install at your home and even make some money to selling energy back into the grid. Archie covered a lot. Again, I won't go too much into it. Food wise, I am not a vegan. I like unlike Tiffany and Archie, I love cooking. I entertain a lot around dinner table. When I have group of friends who are not vegan, it is really difficult for me to organize dinners without that. However, I pay attention to where I buy the ingredients. I shop local. I make sure that they're from local smallholder farmers who care about regenerative agriculture practice. And at the same time, I compost. I always tell people composting is the best thing you could do from your kitchen. It takes emissions to grow food, and if you don't learn to compost, then all these food waste then turn into methane, which is worse than carbon. So in the city I lived in, all the farmers market collect compost, and I put it in my freezer, collect them throughout the week. And my Saturday routine is I bring my little compost bin over to the farmer's market and I get myself some flowers, and I spend half an hour arranging the flower, and that's the beginning of my weekend. And but I'm sure there are local farms near you that you could work with to compost. Highly encourage it. And the third one, when I think about how I move around, I also don't have a car, but luckily Washington, D.C. has a very good metro system that I use. I bike around, walk around the city whenever I can. And for whenever I need to drive, I use the Zipcar system, which is a rental car that I believe might also be present in the UK to do rideshare that also limit my emission footprint. Back to you, Erin.
Great. Thank you all so much. For our people over here, I think Zipcar here, I'm in Dublin, it's GoCar, which I think might be the same in the UK. Not 100% sure, but it's definitely a great resource. I used Zipcar all through my undergrad too. So for people who are starting their carbon cutting journey, because you all are obviously experts, you're far on your journey for cutting carbon, you're doing a lot of amazing things, but let's say someone's just starting out. What would be your first step that you would tell someone to take on their carbon cutting journey?
Well, maybe I'll go first since I was the last to go in the previous
Perfect.
section. I would advise people to start with where you are. There is something that all of us can do in our life to cut emissions. And it is, while I really wish that we were there yesterday, I also recognize, having spent 10 years working in this field, that it is a process. It's sustainability is not a destination, but a progress to continue reinvent ourselves. That being said, again, I gave the example that I'm not a vegan, but I pay attention to how I shop and how I deal with the food waste in my kitchen. There are things that you can do that's realistic and reasonable in terms of how you incorporate into your life, being it using renewable source of energy, or changing how you eat, or changing how you travel.
Great, thank you. Tiffany or
Yeah, maybe yeah. So I just have one tiny comment about composting. We do also compost, but Chen she said, yeah, we try to avoid this way because we're just trying to recuperate a little bit of that energy already invested into making this food. But we need to understand that even when we compost, it's biodegradation, so it's still methane emissions are still there. The question is, are we going to reuse the product to grow food, or that food is going to be grown by using a synthetic fertilizer that takes another energy to produce, and that's quite a lot of energy per person per day in high income countries. So in that context, it's just basically those emissions of methane should be not in vain. That is important because it's really fertile. I mean, our compost is a bit of a mess. We bought a huge plastic like barrel, and we just need to put all this stuff in it, and we're still waiting until we get proper soil out of it. It's still, but the stuff dripping down seems like really nice fertilizer though. That's for sure. So like the radish grows, and we try to grow some cucumber, this kind of things. So that's just the comment that you need to also understand. And I've heard it a few times already, people saying, if you compost, it's not turning into methane. It is turning into methane. That's the same biochemistry going on there. The biodegradation will still emit methane. But of course, important part is it going to be sitting in landfill rotting there, or you just make a fertile soil and then might just try to grow some food on it. So that means it'll save. Again, it's all about energy savings. And I think what's not like essential in our life, like Western culture kind of thing, or like more generally like corporate capitalism culture that has been enforced, not trying to save. So we are supposed to consume, and we don't need to think about, we just consume and throw it away. And that is not good. And I think this is in general what we need to start incorporating in our life. So not following this throwaway culture in all possible ways, starting from compost, starting from clothing, not changing your furniture every year just because you're bored with the couch or something. But also, I think trying to drive less, not just switching to electric cars straight again, because all those things, they have environmental footprints even to build. And that energy required, it's called embodied energy in pretty much everything that we do, because everything we use, all stuff we use has embodied energy, including renewable energy converters as well. And we need to think clever about wisely how we use this budget, because our environment has very little resilience and margin left to mess around and experiment. So that means, especially like modern day powerful, large, high range, large batteries, say electric cars, maybe not the best choice, I would say. So trying to even drive, and it's also expensive. So trying to just drive less, as little as possible, that will save a lot of carbon emissions. Also trying to use public transport. And sometimes people, you see also like comparisons in some public popular posts saying, okay, that is a carbon footprint of 1 kilometer traveled by bus, and this is 1 kilometer traveled by car. So like if 3 people in the car, then it's better than the bus. It's not like that, because bus will go no matter regardless of whether you take your car or not out of your garage. And public transport emissions do not very much depend on how many people are sitting on the bus. So each time you leave your car in your garage, each time you choose public transport, you're saving a lot of emissions. So that is, I think, using public transport and driving less, this is actually maybe even much significantly less. So try to like cut it like 20-30%. Also riding bicycles, and if you're not fit enough or you're living in a hilly area, like for many people I know who are unfit, even any reasonable hill for like any like crazy cyclist like I am, I go, oh, okay, it's amazing, or just some rolling hills, or just this is completely flat. For most people I know, it's just a showstopper, like any reasonable hill. So just buy an electric bike. Electric bike, this is just amazing means of transport. It's very practical and gives you range. And at a tiny cost or environmental footprint, because it takes very little energy to produce the bike, unlike a car. And it gives you that's pretty much very similar functionality in terms of, especially if it's commuting. So buy an electric. And if you try it, you'll never want to just go back to a normal pedal bike. I know and for me, again, I'm an athlete, and I'm no stranger for like spending 9 hours in the saddle on a normal bike. And for me, it was probably a little bit even more so, because I just realized, oh, this is amazing. I just pedal without any resistance and the bike just flies up hills, and it's so cool. You try it and you love it. So people who never even ridden a bike, just start with electric bike straight, and you'll love it. And you'll definitely see a lot of applications in your everyday life. And again, going back to food, try to cut meat, at least cut meat. So if you can't get rid of all animal products, try to reduce the amount of dairy you use, especially cheese, and also all red meats. So try to go like with eggs and some chicken. So if that's like going completely vegan, even though again, it's almost, I'd say, as safe, or even there's a certain even health benefit of actually going vegan completely, especially in comparison to this horrible saturated fat diets of high-income countries. And in comparison to those diets, even like quite extreme vegan diets may be even healthier. That is, like I always portray it as really like you're ruining your health. It isn't the case. So, but if you don't feel like, it's not for you, but just try to, local eggs, local chicken. Those 2 things, they are reasonable compromise between going completely vegan and even lacto-vegetarian, especially if you eat a lot of cheese, is not as amazing as you might think. So I'd say a little bit eggs, a little bit chicken. And energy, insulate your home. That is we live in horrible leaky houses, and this is very cheap, very low tech. This technology exists for 100 years, especially if your house has single glazed windows. Try that. I can spend a few $100, maybe $1,000 or pounds for that matter. Install second windows. Put some insulation above your ceiling, under your roof. Make sure there's no holes, or there's no gaps in your doors. These kind of things. This saves a lot of energy in running your house, a lot. And this is very cheap and very energy efficient.
Great. Thank you so much, Arki. A lot of great information there. Throw it on over to Tiffany really quick. Before I do, I just want to say something that I love that's coming up, is that there are smaller steps you can take, and what you do doesn't have to be perfect. So just little things like putting a little more insulation on your window, or I was like, I'm going to start my week now, how Chen talked about going to the farmer's market. That sounds amazing. Different little things like that, just taking one little step at a time. And you don't have to be perfect. No one's asking you to do this perfectly, just even being more conscious and coming to something like this. So handing it back over to Tiffany.
I absolutely agree with both of you, Arki and Cece. Just small steps to start and building your way up to bigger things, looking at different areas where you can make improvements and changes in your life is really easy, but also crucial to do. For me, my first suggestion would be to try the vegan lifestyle. It's not, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's one of the best things that you can possibly do. I have stood, one of the things that I do is to go to slaughterhouses, abattoirs, and actually go and see the animals go in into their deaths, which is something we do just to try and give them a little bit of peace before they go through the doors. And I have looked into way too many eyes of animals about to be slaughtered, to not sit here and tell you, please avoid eating sentient animals. However, you don't have to go full vegan, from the start. It can be a very simple switch, and it's also the lifestyle. So cutting out leather, trying to avoid dairy as well. It's a big thing. People think, oh, I'll go vegetarian. That's great. Eventually, going vegan will make the biggest difference to the planet, and it avoids so many different things as well. If you think of all the methane released raising cows, the water consumption, the amount of antibiotics that we're using to raise farm animals, the land use. Why have a middle man, i.e. animals, when you can just eat plants? And it's never been easier to start that vegan lifestyle. So please consider that. Apart from that, take it slowly, one step at a time. There's so many things that you can do. Change your bank, change to an eco electricity company. There's so many different things that you can do which pleases you, which doesn't have to impact your lifestyle, but it will make a big impact on the planet.
Yeah, great.
May I jump in very quickly?
Oh yeah, go for it.
I wanted to add that even though I say I'm not vegan, I do wanted to say it is encouraged to live a vegan vegetarian style. For me, whenever I cook with me, it's a treat. Shopping local doesn't necessarily mean that, yeah. So it is, I think all we're trying to say here is that conscious living, be mindful of the impact of your choices and choose wisely.
I love that phrase,
also,
conscious living. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just live or try and live more frugally. I know there's always a push to have more, do more, see more things, buy more things, have an excess, but you don't need all this stuff. Strip it back and just think about what really matters to you, and what really should be mattering to all of us is the future of our children and grandchildren, family, animals, and the plants around us, and we should be protecting that, and that should be our first thought, really, before consumerism.
Yeah, Chen, I saw you just responded. We have Tim in the comments with a great idea as well.
So there's just from chat, there's Tim Coombs asking a question: how about getting involved in local activism, lobbying councillors, MPs, community and energy charities, etc.? Essentially, everything that has been said, was be told just now, will not going to work unless we do all that, unless we become politically active. And this is the biggest thing we can do. And also, maybe one important thing: stop believing in marketing, because unfortunately, and that is, I was just looking I'm really looking carefully at what businesses trying to do when they talking about environmental responsibility. Unfortunately, from my observations, 90% plus of all they say is, well, BS, essentially. And this is just marketing to make customers feel good and get them to spend more money, trying to basically buy their comfort and keep consuming as usual. This is disturbing, and just the very important thing: stop believing it. Everything, it's not necessarily, there's some businesses that are okay, but especially if it's coming from a big business, be very careful, because most of the time they're going to sell old stuff in a new way greenwashed. And unfortunately, this is the reality we live in. And in order to, the problem is like, even this going vegan, if I don't eat meat, it not necessarily means that market will not absorb that meat. It doesn't really even mean that that cow is not going to be killed. So doing all those things gives you the different mindset. You start to realize and you start seeing how all those everyday things are entrenched. And it's really hard to even get rid of meat if you want to, because it's everywhere. And it's really hard to start riding your bicycle because infrastructure is not there, and infrastructure is only pushing you into the car. And it's really hard to buy a house that is not wasting like 5-7 times more energy than it should, because that's how market is doing it. So once you start doing all that, then you have to become politically active. And there must be, so our politicians, our business elites, the business and political elites, they should feel pressure to change infrastructure to help us doing this, because otherwise it would be again another blame shifting kind of thing. So that means individual people are trying to change, and well, big businesses maybe just, you know, say, okay, that's not our fault, it's all you, because, but the problem is you very often infrastructure is designed in such a way, there's no other way. So it is important to actually be politically active. This is essentially the most effective thing. It's not mean that we don't have to compost, try to not eat meat, try to insulate our house, all that, but we need to demand, say, our politicians, please insulate. And I've seen, it was outrageous in the United Kingdom, guys were arrested for protesting, saying insulate Britain movement. The guys were thrown into jail for that. That's how about that? So, but we need to do it. We need to keep doing it. We need disrupting. We need to pressuring local MPs as much as possible. I was trying and I realized it's impossible. It's impossible. The guy, he's young, but the guy is completely, you know, hopeless already. He's just, you know, business or policy as usual, but we still need to keep trying. This is the fight. It's an uphill battle, but this is the battle worth choosing. That is absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead, Chen Chen.
I wanted to say it is important to demand transparency. It is a collective action that our society needs, and ranging from policy, economics, like how we live, and it is requiring a fundamental transformation. But some of us are paying attention to a particular sector, particular topics, have questions, do not believe in what you see and what you read, really demand information on how things are being done. And that's how you could contribute to preventing greenwashing.
Yeah, great. Greenwashing is definitely important to look out for. So I'm glad that topic came up. So thank you, Tim, for your question. In the chat, we got another message from Katie, but before we discuss it, I just want to let you all know, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. There's a little raise your hand function, or throw it in the chat. You kind of all read my mind. I was about to move on to questions and you're already ready to go. So great. Thank you so much. So Katie in the chat said that at the moment in the UK, private electric scooters are still banned, and she's working on trying to help get them legalized. But she's not sure where to start other than posting in community social media groups. Social media is also obviously a great tool to raise awareness and an amazing first step. But do any of you have any ideas on where to go next with that fight?
I'm guessing for the scooters, the electric scooters, if you're using them on the road, they could have a registration plate. They might have to have insurance like cars do, or maybe they could even go so far as to do that with bikes, so that everybody's using the road, but nobody feels singled out because they have a registration plate. I don't know. I mean, it's still that argument about whether you can use them on private land or not. You have to get owners' permission to use it. It's ridiculous for something that's eco-friendly and cheap to run. Why not push it forward in the agenda?
Absolutely. Chen Chen, did you have an idea? I think I heard you start talking.
I can't claim to know the UK system very well, but I would encourage Katie, for you to, and this doesn't apply to electric scooter, but like anything anybody here cares about. Think about who your stakeholders are in this question. Like posting on community social media group is important, but who are you speaking to? And when you identify the stakeholders in this picture, you could then go from there to identify organizations that are already working on it. Perhaps there are private companies that are working on promoting electric scooters. They are clearly incentivized to work on lobbying as well. Are there NGOs who are working on expanding access to electric scooters that you could also work with? And clearly, who are the politicians who may be interested in caring about these issues? Go from there, map out your stakeholders before you move on to next. Then you will be able to organize it.
Like, I love that idea. I was like, that is, I was like, that's the first step of my current master's project. So love that you said that. Makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts on that they want to share?
I just have just something to share, maybe just share inspiration.
Yeah.
So not like CC, she's like really concentrated. I'm just outraged. In Australia, there's really strict regulation about electrical bicycles, and also they just doing a crackdown on the scooters again. There's been people, because there was no obvious transparent legislation, so there's a lot of different outrageous power scooters just were flowing into the market. So people that started, all those accidents started to happen. So they just say, okay, now you can ride only 12 kilometers per hour. That's what's legal now. So it's becoming nonsense because just like a running speed kind of thing. But as for electrical bicycles that are, well, probably the most kind of practical kind of thing, gives you range, speed, distance. In Australia, only what's called pedelec 25 is legal. That means that the bicycle that cannot go faster than 25 kilometers per hour must be exclusively pedal activated. There's no thumb throttle, and the power level is really small, 250 watts. And as for pedelec 45, a faster alternative, so the bike that actually has higher power and can go up to 45 kilometers per hour peak. And that is actually what gives you, again, the range in practical commuting time. This thing is entirely legal. So in Europe, at least in most countries, I don't know what about the UK, but I think France, Germany, pedelec, it's because those standards are coming from Europe. But in Australia, this is really stubborn rules. They all really fussy about extra 100 watts or 200 watts on the power of the bike, but then the car can go 220 kilometers per hour, can have, 200 kilowatts engine, and nobody cares. So that is really strange, and I don't know where to start to get it to, because I've seen people trying to kind of do it and also posting on social media the outrage. And when I build a bike, I can definitely build a 45 kilometers bike. And when I ride on a road bike, this glycoclad middle-aged man, that is me, I can pedal at that speed. So that is the question, why people who can't pedal at that speed are not allowed to use an electric motor to not exercise their, bottom off, instead of just, enjoying, 40, if so the difference is critical here, because something that can go 45 kilometers per hour peak can give you a practical average speed of approximately 30-35 kilometers per hour. If it's a bike is limited to 25 and you don't want to go illegal, so far nobody's enforcing too much, but it's going to change, because we've seen what they do with scooters, and it just only gives you under 20 kilometers per hour average. And that is the difference between this competitive edge of electric bicycle in comparison to cars, because during peak hours, cars can go like approximately between 18 and 25 kilometers per hour, commuting from suburbs to the city center. And of course, pedelec 45 beats cars, no question. And actually infrastructure and legislation taking competitive advantage of electrical bicycles. And again, I honestly don't know how to, because this would be a logical and rational thing to do, to legalize them and have a clear, transparent, consistent legislation about pedelec 45. Doesn't exist.
So we have our science proving that it could be a good option, coupled with our stakeholder identification and our activism and reaching out and hope to make change. So yeah, definitely keep us updated, Katie, on how that goes. very exciting movement. I think they're actually kind of looking at maybe bringing some of those rideshare scooters to Dublin, which would be really cool. Would definitely help me get to class on time. Would appreciate that. Yeah, great. Does anyone else have any questions, thoughts?
Wanted to add a very quick thought to your point, Erin, about connecting different dots. That's also what the Climate App is trying to do, right? We're trying to bring together different elements, people who could work on different aspects based on what they're interested, and then hopefully, yeah, we could create a movement of action.
Yeah, I was like, I actually think that's a great segue. I feel like this went really quick, but so I'm gonna move into a little bit of a wrap up, talk about the Climate App a little bit. But before I do that, do any of our panelists or any of you who've joined us today have any last minute questions, thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up? Awesome. I personally feel like I've learned so much, and I think some of my favorite things about today were seeing how passionate everyone is, how many different avenues there are to make a difference, and how they can all come together. And Chen just put it perfectly. That's what the Climate App is trying to do. We're creating this movement of global actors who are all just as passionate as you all, and who have different areas of expertise, and we can continue to learn from each other just like we did today. So I'm actually in the chat just going to send our website in case you want to learn a little bit more. So let me send that right now. It's like the website's beautiful. It's really fun to look through. It is one of my most visited pages on my laptop. So a lot of fun. And I want to share some really exciting news. You all probably follow us on social media already because you're here. But we've reached over 80% on our crowdfunder in the first couple of days. And we're really, really thankful for everyone supporting. I'm like, yes, big applause for that one. So I'm also going to share that campaign in case you want to check it out. And if you have already supported, you can watch it go up to the 100% mark, hopefully soon. And if not, feel free to check that out. All right, so that is my little wrap up. I'm Erin. Thank you so much for being here, and a special thank you to our 3 panelists. We did record this webinar, so we'll be posting bits and pieces of the wisdom that was shared today on our social media, and I think we might be able to get out the full webinar to participants later on if there's anything you didn't catch that you want to check out again. All right, so it's like I'm going to say good night from Dublin, but wherever you are, enjoy the rest of your day. Or if you're like Arky, have a good early morning. All right, thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So you've got guys who've got
I just saw your message, Sam, right now. I'm sorry.
No, it's brilliant. No, well done. Great stuff. Yeah, no, I think we've got so many the seat collapsed underneath me. We've got so many people, so many great people in the audience. So it would be great just to see, they've got tips and stuff. If anyone's still on right now, feel free to say hi to us.
But like 2 out of those 6 people are my parents. So
yeah. Hello, Erin's parents. She did damn brilliant, as expected. But yeah, nailed it, Erin. Awesome stuff. Can't fault it. Absolutely great. Really loved listening to it.
yeah, we had a good 26 people there for the majority of the time, so that's nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I have the recording, so I'll go through it, and there's a couple things I noted in my head that were like cool little clips that we can use. A couple things each of them said.
Yeah, I think there's lots of wisdom, as you said, and great snippets, and yeah, we'll just upload that to the YouTube channel. But spot on. Yeah, amazing stuff, Evan. You've obviously done this before, so
I
well
did.
done.
I did theater my whole life and then was a tour guide. That's the only reason I know how to do this.
Amazing.
Well, I was like,
where were you a tour guide for?
my university in the States
Wicked.
for like the engineering. Yeah.
For the engineering hall.
The whole engineering school, we had its own campus. I was an engineering undergrad. So
Wicked. Yeah, there you've got it. I am having it meeting. This is my uncle Lionel.
hi. I was like, thanks for loaning Sam to us for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to mix with my family, but I was just too interested in listening to this, of course. So I didn't really listen to all my family, but I won't. They won't go anywhere. Yeah, but no, great stuff. Well done. Nailed it. So thanks for doing that. That was amazing.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good rest of, I don't even know what time it is where you are. So have a good rest of your
10:30.
night.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna go to sleep soon because we're up early in the morning. But anyway.
Nice.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay, great stuff, Erin. Thanks so much.
Bye. Talk to you soon.
Catch you soon. Cheers. Bye.